IndyCar race, and nobody has dropped out of the event. All 26 starters continue running here at the Milwaukee Mile. I'll tell you what, down here on pit road, there isn't a lot going on except for those 19 and 20-second stops several laps ago. One other point we'd like to bring up, too, is one member of Stefan Johansson's Tony Bettenhausen team is not here at the Milwaukee Mile. Tona Eddington, who was injured at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is resting in her hospital at Methodist Hospital, and all of the IndyCar teams send their best wishes to Tona. Let's check in further down pit road with Gary Gerald. Gary, what's going on there?
Well, Jack, we also want to pass on our best wishes to Dan Torborg. He's known as Dashboard Dan. He's the electronics genius who works for Nigel Mansell. And unfortunately, after the 500 last weekend, he was in an automobile accident in Chicago. Had to have surgery for removal of a blood clot earlier this week. He's going to be away from the scene. He has been one of the Championship Association of Mechanics all-star team members in recent years, and he's sorely missed by Mansell and his crew. And I know he wishes he was here today as he watches Nigel try to catch those Penske cars.
On board now with Raul Boesel. Brian Herta sits just ahead.
Jack, the most cars ever to finish one of the IndyCar races this year was 19 at Phoenix. So we're seeing something, your report, it's unprecedented to see so many cars running this deep in the race.
Well, Sam, I think it has to tell you something about how well-wheeled a lot of these teams are becoming. You see people like Buddy Lazier beginning to show, Scott Sharp, Dominic Dobson. We've got a lot of very strong teams in competition, especially here at the Milwaukee Mile.
Exactly. It's a very mature series at this point.
I think we're seeing better racing right now than we have seen here at Milwaukee in our memories. It doesn't make any difference whether it's a leader or if it's clear back to the back.
Raul Boesel now drops to the inside of Brian Herta. Here's a battle for position as Boesel takes Herta's 7th position away from him. That's Mario just ahead. Mario is running another 2 laps back in the run itself. But Herta's not going to have any of this. He's going to stay right back in the fight.
Now, sometimes that does a little wake-up call to the driver. Sometimes you run around there and you think you're going as fast as you can, and you haven't tried enough different grooves. Somebody passes you and you say, wow, I'll try his groove, and it works better often.
Let's get an update on Brian Herta from Gary.
I'll tell you what, Paul, A.J. Foyt is like a caged lion here on pit wall. He's unhappy because Herta, in that battle, he says that Mario keeps chopping his rookie driver off. And the fiery, competitive Foyt spirit is very much in evidence down here as he stands on pit wall, watching now for the field to come out of turn 4.
Well, you know, this is a race with incredible mental strain in it simply because there are so many cars still running. You've got the guys you're battling with and all the cars you've got to be lapping too. There are just more cars on a small 1-mile track than we're used to, and that's got to be tough for Herta.
Sam, this used to be considered a pretty big track, the mile track here at Milwaukee. So today's speeds, as fast as these cars are, it's considered, like you said, a small track. They come around so fast.
Well, Mario won't be a problem for Brian Herta anymore now. He's out and away from Mario, but he's still been broken off in his battle from Raul Boesel. I'm going to try and set it up so we can take a look just at the entire field as they come through for you. We'll keep an eye on Herta. There he is on the backside. Going into turn 3. 3 and 4. And back onto the home stretch. There goes Boesel through. Mansell, here comes Herta. There's Bobby Rahal. Jacques Villeneuve comes through. There's Michael. Stefan Johansson. And there is Scott Goodyear.
Scott Goodyear, of course, has had a trouble-plagued season, culminating in his nearly not being in the Indy 500. And suddenly he rebounded to qualify 5th here. Terrific. And, of course, he ran 2nd here for much of the race last year until he had problems. We thought maybe he was back on track, but he's not running well now. Once the green flag dropped, he went back in the pack. He's having trouble once again.
They're having trouble. That team is just not clicking, Sam. They just have not looked good all season, and I don't think that Scott's a bad race driver. I think he's a very good one. Something is just not clicking in that team, though.
Fernandez and Lyondike move underneath Scott Goodyear there. There's Boesel.
I think we can say that any driver that can win the Michigan 500 and finish 2nd to your nephew at Indy is a good racing driver. There's another problem there somewhere in that team.
changes at the front of the field. It's still Little Al and Emerson Fittipaldi. The battle right now continues to revolve around Brian Herta and Bobby Rahal. Now we ride for the second on Raul Boisel, who sits just in front of Herta.
Well, he's running clear down to the bottom, Paul.
Been doing that all day through 3 and 4. So as Raul Boisel now begins to overhaul Ari Luyendyk, we look to the front of the field, and it's still Little Al and Emerson Fittipaldi, the Penske cars. Well, next week here on ABC Sports, this man, Al Unser Jr., the Indianapolis 500 winner and IndyCar's best, hit the streets of Motown. It's the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. Next Sunday at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 Central and Pacific time right here on ABC Sports. So Al Unser Jr. leads it. He is followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, who is trailing close behind. They are the only two on the lead lap, and Fittipaldi is beginning to close in on Little Al. So we may see a battle here between the two Penske cars. Third place is Paul Tracy. Nigel Mansell sits back and forth, followed by Michael Andretti.
Fittipaldi was as much as 14, 15 seconds back. He's now in the same shot, so to speak. You see him there.
The most remarkable thing is we have gone now 125 miles of the 200, and we have been green flag all the way. The first pit stop's already completed, of course, though an interesting difference between the stops made by the Penske cars and those made by the rest of the field. The Penske cars seem to come in very early.
It's obvious that the settings that these two drivers have now favor Emerson Fittipaldi, whereas in the first segment, before the first pit stops, they favored Al Unser Jr.
As we watch the lead and the battle at the front of the race, let's go to Gary Gerould.
Paul, quick follow-up. We mentioned in the open that Dobson had difficulties in the warm-up session this morning. They had to rob a lot of parts off the spare car, and then, of course, an untested setup, and they went on the track. It's not been a good day. The car's not handled well. He's currently in 16th place. His teammate Scott Sharp runs 12th. Let's go to Jack.
Gary, you may be wondering what has happened to Jacques Villeneuve after qualifying in the second row. Checking in with Barry Green, he tells us right from the beginning the car has been extremely loose. They haven't been able to solve the problem, so he has to battle with it. In the interim, Al Unser Jr.'s team is getting ready to service him for what should be the final time. And once again, gentlemen, they are going to go with sticker tires.
Well, again, they're also going to do what Penske's figure tells them, where he's going to lose the least amount of time, Jack. One of the things that Penske doesn't want to do, if he can help it, is bring somebody in and have them go back out in traffic. He would rather bring them in clean, just like he is right now with Little Al.
So Al Unser Jr., the leader of the race, is on the pit road. 129th lap. And he elects to make a stop, Jack.
And they go to work. The Penske team so methodical, making the changes. This should be, as we said, their final lap, their final pit stop. Taking on a full load of 40 gallons of methanol. They've got it, and they're away in 12 seconds.
Well, that was a good stop for your last stop. The fuel in the tank is not really very high, so they really did a good run on that.
Most critically, though, no apparent chassis changes, right, Jack?
Sam, they haven't made any major or minor chassis changes that we've been able to see in either of their two stops. And I was very fascinated that of all the Penske cars, they're the only ones that have elected each and every stop to go with sticker tires. Seems to me that maybe Jerry Breon saved their guys, their special tires for race day. You know, you're only allowed so many sets of tires during the course of a weekend. And now Emerson Fittipaldi is about to put his car on the pit road for service.
We watch Fittipaldi, who picked up the lead from Al Unser Jr.
One thing you got to keep in mind, that towards the end of the race, it's really important to have new tires. Now, Penske's pitting early, and it's all good now because he's keeping his drivers out of traffic and all, which I think is all good, but they won't have as good a tires towards the end of the race as some of the others will.
Let's go back to the Penske pits and Jack.
Unconfirmed reports, gentlemen, that Emerson Fittipaldi might have been experiencing a slight understeer problem. Rick Reineman working on the right side, a momentary problem with getting the lug nut off, but he completes his task. The longest part of the stop, taking on fuel. He does it in 12.6 seconds.
And again, no obvious aerodynamic changes to the car on that stop.
That slight push, though, apparently was the fast setup for that last segment of the race because he was closing in throughout.
And you can see little Al come right by Emil as Emil came out of the pit. So they're back in about the same position that they came in a little while ago, and their pit stops are about equal also.
As he flashes over the line this time, Al Unser Jr. will be scored as the leader of the race. And to this point, only Penske cars have led in the Miller Genuine Draft 200.
And look at that, even with a full fuel load, little Al was able to outrace Robbie Gordon, who's approaching a pit stop and whose car should at this point be faster.
But of course, Sam, the new tires are always a lot faster. Milwaukee, you can notice they're going out on sticker tires. It really feels good, but that goes away in about 10 laps.
But does this tell us something about what's happening on the race course and how slick it might be? Michael Andretti's race record at 138 miles an hour is still not approached. It was early, but right now they're only averaging 136 even. Is that the rule changes, or is the track slowing down?
I think the track is slowing down, and I think the traffic has an awful lot to do with it, Paul. There's not very many cars that are out of this race so far, and you never see cars out of traffic. Every lap, everybody is in some sort of traffic.
Well, of course, little Al leads the championship by a whopping 20 points going into this race. The last time the man that won Indy went on to win the championship was 1989 when Emerson Fittipaldi won it. Can he sustain it?
Herta's got some problems in the pits. He stalled it as he tried to get away. There's a rookie problem, one he won't make more than twice.
Well, he certainly probably won't ever make that problem very many times, Paul, but that has happened to everybody. I mean, we watch the finest of them stall engine. If everybody just could imagine, these cars, until the blower pressure kicks in, just don't have but about 250 horsepower. So it's easy to stall them. You have to just really rump the gas down and let that clutch just go and slip and just go for it.
Al Unser Jr. in a fight for the lead. Little Al with Fittipaldi 2 seconds just behind him. Closing, of course, on Tracy.
And you see the traffic problem again. Little Al would have liked to have gotten by Tracy right then to put him down another lap, but Michael Andretti was right in the way. Traffic is really a problem here again.
Now little Al gets his way down inside of Tracy, continues the pursuit of Michael Andretti.
Now, once Paul Tracy knew that little Al was there, he would have let him go. That would be good team. Good teamwork.
Well, Paul Tracy appears to be determined to get through this race without a mistake. He was in the doghouse at Indy after he made that mistake the day before qualifying. He had trouble in the race, couldn't earn his way out back into contention. And I remember last year when he had that fine drive at Portland, which is just 2 races away, into third. That's what ignited Tracy's big winning streak. So he needs a cautious race here today.
That's Paul Tracy right there, number 3, and he's always fast.
139 laps complete, Jackaroo.
Well, Paul, just what Sam Posey was saying was absolutely correct. The strategy for Team Penske right now, as this race is unfolded, is to allow Paul Tracy to have an error-free afternoon. They think he's solidly in third place. They aren't going to make any major changes in his final stop. He has a slight understeer, but they said, let him get to the checkered flag and get a race under his belt. That'll help his confidence even more than if he tried to get racy for second position.
Once again, the Penske cars took their stops ahead of the rest of the field. Unser Jr. and Fittipaldi have both completed theirs. Paul Tracy has yet to make his second and final stop of the day.
We are looking at the possibility of a 1-2-3 sweep for the Penske team, who has just won Indianapolis, who had the pole at Indianapolis, and who won Long Beach and Phoenix before that. Right now, they look unbeatable.
Still got about 35, 37 laps to go, though, Sam. Remember that.
Al Unser Jr. has now picked up the point, the extra point for leading the most laps here today. We have run 141 laps, and every one of them under the green flag. Final stop still to come for much of the field.
This Ford Fact is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?